The story begins with the main character, Aizawa, standing alone in a miserable condition, his teary eyes open with fear as a baseball lands right beside him. The boys around him shout, laughing as they score him and mocking his pain like it's a game. They tell him to smile and not look so miserable because it makes them seem like bullies. Our MC forces a fake smile while his eyes stay heavy with tears. His face is the target, literally marked with 100 points. When a boy hits him again, they cheer. It's a perfect score and prepare for another round. Time shifts to late May 2021. One woman studies the other and asks, Megumi? They reunite with warm smiles, laughing at how many years and how much age have caught up with them. Then they turn to Sataka-san, only to stop short, startled by her unexpected appearance. The once plain girl from their school days now looks completely different, drawing attention from every guy around her. The women wonder if she's had some surgery. At that moment, a man named Suzuki walks in, drawing everyone's attention. His friend immediately teases him about trying to look cool by showing up late, but he waves it off with a shrug. The women, surprised to see him, fall momentarily silent. He greets one of them politely, and she feels a quiet relief. She hadn't been sure he'd come, even though she was the one who organized the reunion. As they talk about how difficult it was to gather everyone after 20 years. Yet it's clear that Class 3-2's bonds were strong even back then. As they continue talking, a man opens the door and quietly walks in. The girl, Megumi whispers that Suzuki is still as charming as ever. The other woman adds that he's become an elite banker now, earning over 100,000 a year. Megumi's eyes widen. Her husband is just a civil servant earning half that, and she jokes about being jealous of Suzuki's wife. The women around agree that only people who've done well in life would bother showing up here anyway. No one with a pathetic life would dare. Suzuki announces that it's time to start the function. He steps up to the mic and takes the stage confidently, introducing himself as the MC of the reunion. He thanks everyone for coming on such short notice, joking that it's nice to see so many people with nothing better to do. The crowd bursts into laughter, someone shouting that they're not that jobless. Suzuki smiles, reminiscing about their old school days and how nostalgic it feels to see these familiar faces again. He tells everyone to have fun like the old school days as students. Then, mid-sentence, his expression changes. His eyes land on the main character, who just walked in, standing silently in the middle of the crowd. He reads his name tag, Aizawa Yuichi. The room grows still. Whispered questions ripple through the crowd. Why is he here? Suzuki stares, remembering the past. The cruel games, the humiliation he led. But then, as if nothing happened, he continues his speech smoothly, pretending not to notice the shock spreading through the hall. Murmurs start among the guests. They recognize the main character from third year, class 2, the boy who was bullied so badly he dropped out of school. Some whisper that it's strange for someone like that to come to a reunion. Others ask who invited him. A few remarks that his mental strength must be unbelievable to show up here after everything. A woman named Takano approaches him gently, asking if he remembers her. She apologizes for what happened years ago, saying she always regretted not helping him back then. Aizawa recalls the same woman once laughing as he cried, calling him lame. Now, in front of him, she speaks softly about her happy life, her husband and kids, and wonders if he still resents her. He simply smiles and tells her he doesn't hold any grudges. The crowd watches, unsure of what to say, as more classmates come forward awkwardly, each trying to apologize. Some hesitate in the corner, debating whether they should apologize too. One insists he didn't actually do anything wrong, blaming someone else for starting it. When Suzuki overhears them asking who that someone else was, they freeze, suddenly quiet. Suzuki walks up to Aizawa, smiling in his practiced way, and says, "It's been a while, and he is really glad to meet him." The crowd tenses. The air feels heavier. Suzuki stretches out his hand, pretending a warmth as he talks about how they missed him after he left the school, as if they'd wanted to graduate together. A man in the crowd mentally scoffs. He remembers Suzuki invented the Let's Bully Aizawa for fun games to kill their boredom back then. Our gentle lad reaches out, shakes Suzuki's hand, and says he's glad to see he hasn't changed. Two of them shake hands, and everyone around shocks as they have seen a ghost. The photographer calls everyone for the photo, but Suzuki puts his hand on Aizawa's shoulder and whispers under his breath about the reason for his arrival. He says the party's ruined because of him. He tells the main character that everyone came here to remember the good old days, not the miserable ones. The main character stays silent. Suzuki gets irritated, saying that his silence was what always made him so annoying. He mocks him. How, even when they shoved his head in a toilet or threw baseballs at his face, he never fought back. He should have resisted a little. Maybe things would have stopped. The photographer calls them again to line up for the picture. The main character finally asks him if the bullying would have really stopped if he had resisted. Suzuki smirks and says, probably, but insists that the one who gets bullied is always the one to blame. The words sting. Suzuki tells Aizawa to chill and smile. The main character forces a smile and says he shouldn't worry. Smiling is something he's good at. Suzuki's eyes narrow, filled with quiet danger. Later that night, Suzuki returns home. His wife and daughter greet him warmly. His daughter asks about the reunion, amazed that he met people from 20 years ago. He laughs and says nobody really changed. Inside, though, his thoughts turn sharp. He remembers Aizawa's shabby clothes and lifeless eyes. He grins smugly, telling himself that losers never change and that this is reality. People like him never turn their lives around. The next morning, Suzuki hums in a good mood, almost thankful to Aizawa for reminding him how good his life is. His daughter leaves for school and he greets her with a good day. Meanwhile, at a school, Shiori opens her shoe locker and finds it vandalized. A cruel letter tells her to die, calling her disgusting. She hides her shock when her friend greets her, pretending everything's fine. As they walk, Aizawa appears looking perfectly composed and polite, and he asks Shiori if she has a moment. In the AV room, he asks if anyone has been harassing her lately. Shiori looks confused and nervous. He gently points out that she's been losing things like her history textbook last week and asks if someone stole it. She smiles awkwardly, saying he's overthinking it, that she's just clumsy, and that everyone gets along fine. Sensei nods, saying that's good, but warns her that small acts of bullying often grow worse when ignored. He rolls up his sleeve and shows her his arm. It's covered in old scars and burn marks from cigarettes. Shiori gasps in horror. He tells her he experienced bullying himself. The girl shouts, asking what happened to his arm. He explains that someone once did that to him in middle school. She goes silent, her eyes filling with tears as she whispers that people who can do such things aren't even human. The main character agrees quietly, remembering Suzuki's words from the night before. He tells Shiori that if anything ever happens, she should come to him right away. He'll protect her with everything he has. In his mind, one question echoes. Would Suzuki ever be able to tell his own daughter the same thing he told him? The scene shifts to the principal addressing all the teachers, reminding them that the past few days' news has been full of stories about bullying. He warns them that even a small report might influence some students, so they must be careful and prepared. He smiles and says he's counting on everyone. Furthermore, he encourages them to make this year like the last one, which had 0 cases of bullying. After asking if anyone has anything to report, the room falls silent. He concludes the morning meeting and tells the teachers to work hard today. As Aizawa walks down the corridor, Yazaki calls out to him. She asks how he is adjusting to the school. He replies uncertainly, saying it's only been 2 months and he's still unsure about many things. As they walk together, she admits that even after 3 years at the school, some of its policies still trouble her. She questions the principal's stance on bullying, hinting that pressure from above might be keeping teachers from reporting incidents. She vows that if bullying ever occurs in her class, she'll protect her students without hesitation. Aizawa smiles, impressed by her resolve, and agrees wholeheartedly. Meanwhile, in the 3rd year, Class 5, Shiori talks with a friend about the culprit of a story. Her friend speculates that the butler might be behind it, but Shiori dismisses that as cliché. She wonders if it could be the neighbor joking about waiting until next week's episode. Her friend's surprised reaction makes Shiori think she's figured out the culprit, but then she notices Aizawa-sensei standing behind her. He reminds her that the bell already rang. She apologizes, embarrassed. Sensei starts the lesson on heredity, continuing from yesterday. Shiori can't stop thinking about their conversation. The way he showed her his scars and warned her that small acts of harassment grow worse if ignored. She wonders if what's happening to her counts as bullying, and who might be behind it. As Aizawa continues the lecture, a student asks whether personality is inherited. Sensei explains that about half of personality comes from genetics, which surprises the class. Another student asks if the household environment matters. He explains that it doesn't matter how your parents raise you. Upbringing influences personality far less than genetics. Aizawa asks them if they know about identical twins. He then describes that identical twins have 100% match of genes. An experiment with identical twins raised in separate households was performed. They wanted to check the difference in their personalities. The twins' personalities, attitudes, integrity, and mental strength were almost identical, So the researchers concluded that personality is largely hereditary. A boy asks what determines the other half of personality. Aizawa replies that it comes from outside influences, mainly one's social group and friends. He stresses that social influence is stronger than household upbringing in normal circumstances, excluding abuse or extreme situations. Then walking toward Shiori and with sharp eye contact with her, he emphasizes that personality is mostly inherited. Shiori looks confused. He returns to the textbook and continues the lesson. After school, the girl heads home. The cool sensei calls out to check if she's okay. She says she's fine, just tired from staying up late. He tells her to be safe on her way home. As he turns to go, she calls to the sensei and hesitantly asks whether he was able to stop the bullying he faced. He's surprised by the question. She admits she keeps thinking about their talk from yesterday. Before he can reply, her friend calls her, reminding her about cram school. Shiori apologizes and leaves, promising to see him tomorrow. Later, the sensei wanders alone into the science room. He studies the chemicals on the shelves and decides that it's finally time to begin. His mind drifts back to middle school, the moment his classmates pinned him to the floor while Suzuki stood over him with a bottle of sulfuric acid. He remembers screaming for help, only for Suzuki to pour the liquid on him. It was just water, and Suzuki laughed while he lay there shaking. He called him an idiot and kicked him as he stayed helpless on the ground. A girl walked into the room back then, asking if she was interrupting, and Suzuki casually told her to come later. He remembers Suzuki mocking him, saying no one would ever help him, and questioning why he was even alive. In the present, our guy looks through a window, answering Shiori's question. He survived and is here now because he couldn't stop the bullying then. Meanwhile, Shiori reaches home late. Her mother, worried, asks if she stopped anywhere on the way, but Shiori denies it and explains that she stayed for cram school to ask some math questions. Her mother says it's fine, but reminds her to stay focused because these years matter. Shiori thinks back to middle school when her grades stopped improving, and she ended up in a public school while others moved to private ones. Her mother admits she was disappointed during those 3 years. Shiori sets her cup down a little too hard, then forces a smile and promises she'll get into her first-choice university this time. Her mother watches her with quiet disappointment. Suzuki welcomes her home and warmly praises Shiori for studying late. He asks if she's hungry, and she says she's starving. After dinner, they talk about personality traits and heredity. Shiori remembers the topic coming up in science class and finds it strange. Suzuki observes that his daughter resembles him, someone assertive, good at making friends, and kind to people who seem lonely. Shiori laughs, pleased to hear it. Suzuki adds that her teacher gives interesting talks and says he'd like to meet him sometime. The next day, Shiori studies math with Yumi. She asks questions about the problems and complains that math feels impossible. Annoyed, she says it shouldn't even be a required subject. Yumi gently tells her that practice will eventually make it easier. Nearby, 2 other girls notice Shiori studying during lunch and commented on her dedication. They talk about how she quit the basketball club and how she and another girl drifted apart afterward. One of them says you can't take club activities too seriously anyway. As the lunch break ends, they get ready for 5th period, joking about being excited for basketball but laughing about wanting to go home instead. Yumi asks Shiori to play with them. For a moment, Shiori's eyes brighten at the idea of playing basketball again, but then she remembers why she quit the club because of exams. She starts looking for her gym clothes, but suddenly realizes they're missing. When she checks the trash nearby, she finds them thrown inside, torn and ruined like a warning. Her eyes widened in fear. At that moment, Yumi arrives and sees the ruined clothes. Shiori watches her reaction in shock, but Yumi simply brushes it off and heads to the changing room. Shiori silently wonders why she didn't ask anything. Yumi walks away with disappointment written on her face. From a distance, Aizawa notices Shiori's troubled expression. He remembers Suzuki's old words that no one would ever help. But when he approaches Shiori with a friendly smile and asks what's wrong, she suddenly panics at his words and bolts. The MC watches her run, a heavy certainty settling in their chest. Shiori's real hell is only just beginning. Shiori stands alone on the basketball court, watching Yumi chat with another classmate. She can't help wondering why Yumi pretended not to see her gym clothes tossed into the trash. Someone suddenly calls her name. It's Yazaki-sensei. She asks what Shiori is daydreaming about and whether something is bothering her. Shiori quickly says it's nothing. Yazaki-sensei sighs, remarking that it's a shame Shiori finally earned a regular spot on the team, only to quit before becoming a 3rd year. Shiori apologizes, thinking to herself that she never truly wanted to quit. Yazaki-sensei tells her she must have had her reasons and encourages her just to enjoy today. She tosses Shiori a basketball, and the gesture instantly brightens Shiori's mood. Shiori starts playing, pouring all her energy into it. It's been 3 months since she last touched a ball, and she savors every moment, even if she suspects she might be overthinking everything. Yumi suddenly calls her over. Shiori jogs toward her with a smile, but Yumi hesitates before asking what she was talking about with Aizawa-sensei. The question shocks her. Yumi presses on, asking if she spoke with him after leaving the classroom earlier. Shiori freezes for a second, then replies that they didn't really talk. He only told her to hurry to class. She then asks, startled, why Yumi even brought it up. She smiles and says it was nothing, then returns to the game. Shiori is left speechless by her behavior. As Shiori's attention shifts to Yumi, someone suddenly calls her name, and she's tackled to the ground. The girl apologizes, worried she hit Shiori's head. Yazaki-sensei helps her up and brings her to the infirmary. The nurse says she's fine but should rest. Shiori blames herself for spacing out during the match, but Yazaki-sensei reassures her and reminds her she can talk to her anytime. Exhausted from worrying, Shiori soon falls asleep. Aizawa arrives afterward and quietly watches over her, noticing her shirt has ridden up slightly and stepping closer out of concern. Outside the staff room, Yumi notices Aizawa and calls him over. He asks why she's concerned and reminds her that school is almost over. Yumi says she's worried about Shiori's condition. He replies that the nurse said she's fine and her mother picked her up. He asks if she's worried, confusing Yumi. She shouts that Shiori is her friend, of course. She's worried and storms off, wondering what's wrong with him. The word friend makes his expression shift, and he quietly thinks, so that's how it is. Inside the staff room, a student finds Shiori's phone. Yazaki offers to call her guardian, but Aizawa takes it, planning to return it to her along with some printouts. Later at Shiori's house, her mother apologizes for making him come, but he says it's no problem. He tells her that he was worried about Shiori. She admits she didn't want her daughter to have a phone, fearing it would badly affect her studies, but her husband insisted. She sadly adds that only their household doesn't allow phones, unlike other parents. As he looks at their family photo and sees Suzuki smiling, Aizawa's eyes flash with quiet hatred. The mother asks him if everything is fine. He nods and asks about his student. Shiori arrives home and the mother steps away for a call, apologizing. Aizawa notices a photo of Shiori and Suzuki and thinks it's not fair. Suddenly, Shiori enters and he smiles, asking if she's okay. She nods and asks if the picture got his attention. He remarks that they all look happy and asks if she likes her father. She smiles and says she loves him. She tells him the photo is from the first time she rode a bike alone. Though she was scared at first, but her father helped her practice from morning until night. Eventually, she focused on making him smile rather than worrying about falling. Aizawa thinks of how Suzuki smiled at him when he was bullied and realizes the same care-shaped Shiori. He tells her it's a good story. He points out her phone on the table. She checks it and sees 7 messages from friends worried about her, which makes her happy. He teases her for being happy over this little thing. She laughs, confused by his words, but smiles. The mother returns and is surprised to see her downstairs. She asks if she's been calling her father. Shiori says she's fine and mentions that her father will be home soon. She suggests Sensei to meet him, as he expressed interest. The mother says he must be busy, and Sensei smiles politely. Outside, Suzuki arrives home tired, calling for Shiori. He hurriedly opens the main door and calls Shiori. She and her mother greet him. He asks if she's okay, worried about her. Shiori says she is fine, and the teacher visited to return something she forgot, and she wishes he could have met him. Suzuki hugs her tightly and feels relieved that she is all right. Later, Shiori settles at her desk and checks a message from Yumi asking if she's all right. Suddenly, she receives a direct message from someone unknown. It's a video of her sleeping in the infirmary. As she plays the video, a hand reaches under her shirt and, without hesitation, grabs her. Her eyes widened with fear. She screams, terrified and disgusted, throwing the phone away. Shivering, she wonders who could have filmed this and why. The scene shifts to the next day, where Aizawa talks to Shiori's mother on the phone. She thanks him again for yesterday. He asks how Shiori is now, and she says she felt unwell in the morning and might need a day off or to visit a hospital. She adds it's strange because she seemed fine yesterday. He replies that he's worried about her. In class, the cold MC finishes the lesson and dismisses everyone. Yumi notices Shiori's empty seat and a wave of sadness crosses her face. Suddenly, Nagumo calls her over. "Are you Shiori's friend?" she asks. Yumi nods. Nagumo admits she accidentally crashed into Shiori and feels responsible for what followed. She complains that Shiori read her messages but never replied. Yumi explains she hasn't responded to her either. Nagumo snaps that replying is basic manners. A classmate quietly suggests Shiori might be unwell, but Nagumo grumbles that a simple stamp wouldn't have hurt. She irritably asks if Shiori said anything about skipping school, and Yumi hesitates before saying no. Nagumo fumes that she waited for nothing, then remarks that Shiori's clinginess must be exhausting for Yumi. She hesitates, forces a small smile, and admits maybe it is sometimes. Aizawa, overhearing, reflects on 7 texts, worried. He grins to himself as he walks away, muttering that they're such caring friends. The next day, Shiori sits in the infirmary while the nurse checks on her. After a day of rest, she says she feels much better. The nurse reminds her that she was hit hard and should take it easy for the next 2 or 3 days. Shiori nods, then hesitantly asks if anyone visited while she was asleep. The nurse thinks for a moment. Plenty of people stopped by, she says, including some girls from your class who seemed really worried. Shiori quietly asks if anyone else came, and the nurse adds, Aizawa-sensei too. Walking down the hallway, Shiori thinks about the video. Frustrated, she still can't figure out who filmed it. Based on the nurse's info, it must be someone from her class. She wonders if she's done something to make someone resent her. Standing before the classroom door, fear grips her as she recalls the video. Silently, she prays it hasn't spread, then opens the door with a forced smile. Her classmates greet her happily, asking if she's okay. Seeing them relieved, she smiles and says she's fully recovered. Yumi approaches, admitting she was really worried since Shiori hadn't replied to her messages. She apologizes, explaining she wasn't feeling well yesterday. Yumi then offers the class notes from the day before. Surprised, Shiori asks if she can really take them, and Yumi laughs, saying she would have borrowed them anyway. Shiori gives an awkward smile. Around them, the rest of the class shows their relief. Even Nagumo admits she's glad Shiori is okay, though another girl quietly points out Nagumo's fault for hitting her. Shiori brushes it off, but inside she suspects the presence of the culprit among the smiling faces. In the science lab, Sensei introduces the day's experiment, observing somatic cell division using onion samples. Shiori pairs up with Yumi. When she begins placing the onion on the slide with her fingers, Yumi quickly stops her, reminding her to use tweezers to avoid air bubbles. Precision affects our grades, she adds. Shiori nods quietly, promising herself she won't cause any trouble. Then she hears a conversation nearby, something about a crazy video. Her stomach drops as she realizes they might be talking about her. The girls laugh about how the person in the clip is taking a huge risk. Panic rises in Shiori's chest. Yumi notices the change in her expression and asks if anything is wrong. Before she can answer, Nagumo holds out her phone to Yumi. Terrified, Shiori smacks it out of her hand. The phone hits the floor, drawing everybody's attention with a loud clatter. The sensei looks over with a sharp, cold stare. Nagumo grabs Shiori by her shirt, demanding an explanation. Another girl checks the phone and says the screen isn't broken, but Nagumo insists that this isn't about the phone. Shiori finally sees the screen. Just a random post, nothing to do with her, and her fear twists into humiliation. Aizawa-sensei steps in, takes the phone, and tells everyone to get back to work. Shiori tries to explain it was a misunderstanding, but he cuts her off, scolding her for losing focus and reminding the class that exams are close. Nagumo protests, but Sensei shuts it down, saying rules are rules. Then he turns to Shiori and tells her to see him after class. Shiori freezes with shock, but she feels relieved and nods. Nagumo yells and calls the whole thing the worst. After class, Aizawa approaches Shiori and gently asks about her behavior, wondering if it has anything to do with her absence yesterday. The little dove's eyes fill with tears as she struggles to explain everything that has been happening to her. Her voice shakes as she admits she can't handle it anymore. She quietly asks if he will listen to her. The devil sensei rests a hand on her head and, with a soft smile, tells her he's on her side. He instructs her to come to the prep room after lunch. Shiori nods, holding onto his words like a lifeline. During lunch, classmates whisper about how bold and intimidating Shiori was when she stood up to Himekawa. Feeling guilty, Shiori apologizes to Yumi for dragging her into it, but she brushes it off. Shiori offers Yumi her favorite bread, only to stop when another girl invites Yumi to join them. Hesitant at first, Shiori is reassured when the girl insists she can come too, and notes that Himekawa isn't angry with her. At the table, Shiori tries to apologize directly to Himekawa, who turns away. The conversation shifts to karaoke plans, and the group excitedly agrees to go. Yumi declines, citing committee work. Himekawa suddenly points out that Shiori wasn't even invited, which startles her. She quickly apologizes, and Himekawa smiles, telling her just to be careful next time. Yumi stays quiet, unsure how to respond. Nagumo mentions a group chat created yesterday. It dawns on Shiori that a group was made without her, even including Yumi. She glances at Yumi, who deliberately ignores her, leaving Shiori shocked and hurt. Feeling out of place, she quietly leaves, walking down the hallway. She meets Manaka and thanks him for picking up her phone, learning it had fallen under a bench in the courtyard while she napped. They talk about classes and teachers. Manaka mentions the Aizawa sensei, asking if the teacher is nice. She explains he has a decent personality and even went to her house to return her phone recently. Manaka says he saw Sensei messing around with her phone, which shocks Shiori. He explains that he immediately recognized it as her phone when he picked it up from the ground earlier. Shiori's mind races with frightening possibilities. She recalls how the sensei always seemed to appear whenever she was being bullied. At that moment, a chilling thought takes hold. Could it have been the sensei bullying her torment all along? At the exact moment someone calls her, it's Aizawa sensei, asking if she's finished eating and ready to go to the prep room. Fear grips the little love, and she says they should talk another time, waving him off. Sensei grabs her hand, questioning why she's being reluctant to answer. Manaka intervenes, calling it sexual harassment. Sensei lets go and reminds Shiori that they still have time and that she promised to talk. Shiori hesitates, muttering that he's untrustworthy, then runs off like a frightened child. The devilish sensei turns to Manaka, asking if he spoke with Shiori. Manaka confirms, thinking the sensei isn't normal. He smirks, considering Manaka a minor nuisance, and warns him not to interact with Shiori too much. He says it will be better for both of them before walking away. From the window, Aizawa watches Shiori and reflects that, although he has lost her trust, he will always keep an eye on her. On the other hand, Shiori sits alone at a fountain, her face shadowed with disappointment. She wonders who she can trust and who would truly listen to her. Nearby, Yazaki-sensei appears and Shiori considers approaching her, but sensei is busy in a phone call. Choosing not to disturb her, Shiori walks away. Yazaki, still on the call, notices her, but it's too late. She laughs with the person on the other end, who is revealed to be Suzuki. He tells her to arrange to meet at their usual hotel. Yazaki expresses her love for him, and he replies in kind, smiling. Suzuki sits behind the desk, reviewing a loan application for $12 million. The elderly man before him pleads, insisting that just a little more capital could save his business. Suzuki sets down the plan calmly and, in a measured voice, tells him he cannot approve the loan. The man freezes, shocked. Suzuki explains that the factory has been in the red for 2 consecutive periods, and, given the risk of insolvency, the bank cannot trust it to repay the loan. Panic spreads across the man's face. He grabs Suzuki's collar, shouting that abandoning him now will ruin everything. Suzuki glares, voice cold. "Let go of my suit or it will wrinkle." Reluctantly, Nomura-san releases him. Suzuki continues unflinching. Refusing the loan is for his own good. Continuing the business will only deepen his debt. Tears stream down the old man's face as he asks if Suzuki has a young child to consider. A coworker watches silently, concern etched on their face. But Suzuki quietly enjoys seeing the man crumble. After the meeting, the manager greets Suzuki, praising him for cleaning up for everyone. But he brushes it off with humility, saying he's used to dealing with people who play the sympathy card. He smiles, thinking about his next appointment with the food company. The manager laughs, impressed by how quickly he gets results. The coworker remarks that Suzuki is amazing, smiling as the old man broke down, while another calls him a sadist. Despite the dark impression, everyone respects his efficiency and skill, predicting his promotion to section manager next year. They think he is the perfect example of an elite person. Suzuki smiles privately, thinking how life has always gone his way. Later, Suzuki rests in a hotel with Yazaki. He smokes a cigarette, reflecting on his 35 years without defeat. Everyone around him, the classmates, teachers, co-workers, and even his boss, is at his mercy. He sees them all as fools. Yazaki calls him extraordinary and charming, praising him, and he smiles at her. He thinks she's just a convenient toy, young, naive, and easily manipulated, as she believes in his words. Yazaki suddenly reminds him it's been a year since they met at the basketball club, cheering for Shiori. She says she's happy with their current relationship and can feel how much he loves her more than his wife. Suzuki extinguishes his cigarette, holding her close, telling her she is the one he loves. But inside, he plans to cut her off. She's been with him a year, and he senses she's growing too attached. Back at home, he walks in with the bitter thought that he won't be able to enjoy with her anymore. His wife greets him with a warm smile. He asks about their daughter, and she tells him Shiori is in the bath. Suzuki feels untouchable, yet he remembers there was one time he miscalculated. He thinks back on how his wife has leached off him ever since their teen pregnancy, using their child to bind him. He recalls how she became pregnant at 19 and how powerless he felt back then. Old anger stirs in him. A moment later, Shiori steps out to welcome him home. He smiles back, feeling an unexpected warmth spread through him. As he watches her, he admits to himself that even though he never wanted a child, he now genuinely loves her. Suzuki asks how school has been for her. Shiori hesitates, then forces a smile and replies she has many friends and is enjoying every day before walking off with a quiet, sad expression. He talks to himself that of course she is happy because she is his daughter and must be proud that she has a capable father. He glances at a reunion photo and reflects on the contrast between her life and that of ordinary children. In his mind, she's fortunate to have been born as his daughter. He convinces himself it's the best thing that has ever happened to her. The following day in class, Shiori opens her bag and finds it stuffed with trash and her notebooks torn apart. She whispers to herself, wondering how long this will keep happening. A classmate notices the mess and asks in confusion what happened, suggesting she should tell the teacher, but forces an uneasy smile and brushes it off, trying to downplay everything is all right as worry tightens inside her. Yumi notices Shiori's troubled expression before walking over to Nagumo. She quietly asks if it would be okay to add Shiori to their group chat, explaining that she feels terrible about the incident yesterday. Nagumo agrees that Shiori should be included, but then mentions she heard that Shiori was seen getting close to Manaka from Class 2. Himekawa freezes at the name. They whisper about how everyone knows Himekawa likes Manaka, and even Shiori seems aware of it. Yumi hesitantly wonders if Shiori might have done it on purpose. Their conversation spreads across the room, and soon other girls start gossiping. They speculate that Shiori may have acted sneakily, hinting that she goes after things the other girls care about. In the corridor, Shiori notes Aizawa and Yazaki-sensei and quietly walks past them. The MC tells Yazaki he'll see her later. Yazaki, leaving, hears a scream. Himekawa is furious, questioning Shiori and whether she has a problem with her. One of the classmates tries to intervene, but Himekawa confronts a classmate, demanding to know if she's Shiori's friend. The girl hesitates, saying they aren't friends and barely speak, making Himekawa pity Shiori and mock her in front of others. Yazaki-sensei looks on, concerned. Later, in the science prep room, Yazaki confides to Aizawa-sensei that she suspects bullying in Class 5. She says Shiori has been acting strangely and asks if he's aware. He smiles calmly, denying that any bullying is happening in his class. Furious, Yazaki snaps, demanding if he plans to take action. She insists something is clearly wrong with Suzuki-san, and that he should step in. Aizawa remains composed, replying that as the homeroom teacher, he knows Class 5's situation, and it's not her place to intervene. As she turns to leave and speak to the principal, he suddenly slams the door, blocking her path. With a fierce look, he asks why she's so concerned about Shiori, and why she treats only her well among the students. Yazaki is shocked, realizing he might already know about her affair. She warns him to resolve the issue quickly, then storms out. After school, Shiori is walking home when Manaka calls out, asking if she has a moment to talk. Surprised and a little excited, she agrees. He gets straight to the point. It's about Aizawa-sensei. He explains that noticing the teacher's strange behavior, he looked him up online and found something disturbing. Aizawa had transferred schools recently and previously taught at Kayama Middle School, the same school involved in a major bullying scandal 6 months ago, where a victim's personal information was leaked online. Shiori instantly recognizes the case from the news. Manaka describes the severity of the violence the student faced, how every detail of the victim's life was exposed online, and then mentions one chilling detail: the victim's class and the homeroom teacher's name, Aizawa Yuichi. Shiori freezes. She can't believe what she's hearing. Aizawa-sensei was the same teacher from that scandal. Meanwhile, in his office, Suzuki leans back in his chair, thinking about Yazaki. She wasn't able to meet him today, so he decided to head home early. But then his mind drifts back to the class reunion, and to a woman he remembered, Shuji Ryuko. A slow smile spreads across his face as he thinks she might be his next target. Before inviting her to a hotel, he decides he should warm her up with a friendly call. He dials her number, apologizes for contacting her so late, and thanks her for helping organize the reunion, adding that they never could have gathered everyone without her. But Ryuko says nothing. Suzuki frowns and gently asks if something is wrong. Then, with a trembling voice, she apologizes. She claims she didn't volunteer to help. She was told to. Her tone grows heavy. Ryuko begins to cry and says he knew her address. that he hadn't forgotten a single thing. Her voice trembles with 20 years of hate. Suzuki stiffens, confused, trying to interrupt, but she keeps speaking. She says she couldn't refuse him before, and that he's going to ruin her life again. Suzuki finally shouts for her to stop, demanding to know who she's talking about, but a cold presence forms behind him. He feels someone standing there. He slowly turns around, still holding the phone to his ear, and sees Aizawa, the devil himself, standing right behind him. Suzuki stammers, asking if it's really Aizawa-kun. He smiles politely and says how strange and lucky it is to meet like this. They haven't met since the reunion, after all. Suzuki's eyes widened with pure fear. He realizes too late who Ryuko had meant. Suzuki stands shocked as he looks at Aizawa and slowly realizes that he is the one who arranged the whole reunion. Our MC greets him like it is a funny coincidence to meet in a place like this. While he talks, Ryuko checks if Suzuki is still on the call, and when he apologizes and says he will call her back, she refuses and tells him not to call again. She cries as she admits that the person Aizawa hates the most is Suzuki, and she explains that she spread the word about the reunion because she was told to, but she does not want to get involved anymore. She apologizes and ends the call. Aizawa asks if it was Shuji and apologizes since he overheard a bit. He says he saw her at the reunion and casually mentions that she hasn't changed at all. Suzuki becomes uneasy after suddenly seeing Aizawa in person right after Shoji's warning. Our MC asks him if he has time for a drink. Soon they sit in a cafe, drinking coffee, and Aizawa says the reunion felt nostalgic. He is glad he went because more people came than he expected. While he talks, Suzuki keeps thinking about Ryuko's words and the fact that Aizawa remembers everything and hates him the most. Aizawa starts to speak, but Suzuki cuts him off and asks what the real purpose behind organizing the reunion was, because it clearly was not to talk about old memories. He stands and questions if their meeting today is really a coincidence. Aizawa stays silent for a moment, then smiles and admits that the meeting is not a coincidence at all. Suzuki is shocked. Aizawa explains that he learned Suzuki works at Sanmaru Bank and waited outside the building to catch him after work. Suzuki becomes furious and panicked. He lights a cigarette and demands that Aizawa stop playing games, asking why he is approaching him with such underhanded tactics. He yells and challenges Aizawa to take revenge if he thinks he can. Aizawa calmly denies it, surprising him. He explains that he asked Ryuko to help with the reunion because he wants to face his past. He attended an assembly for victims of bullying and met many people still trapped in trauma from years ago. Someone there told him that confronting the past directly and meeting the person who caused the pain might help them move on. He says an apology from his bully could help him finally cut those ties. When Suzuki asks if the reunion was for that reason, Aizawa answers yes. He explains he could not organize it alone, so he searched the graduation album for someone who might help, and that person was Shuji-san. Suzuki comments that she must have been surprised when he contacted her out of nowhere. Suzuki smokes in silence, then asks if what Aizawa is saying is true, which would mean Aizawa wants an apology from him. He becomes irritated and calls him cocky. He stands and asks how long Aizawa plans to cling to the past, but then notices Aizawa looking at him sharply. Fear hits him. He quickly puts out his cigarette and excuses himself to the restroom. Aizawa stares at the cigarette in the ashtray, and his mind slips back. In his memory, Suzuki holds a cigarette and orders Aizawa to act like an ashtray and not drop any ash. Poor lad stands trembling with his hands out as the ash falls. Suzuki screams that he told him not to drop it and announces it is punishment time. The other kids beat Aizawa's back while Suzuki thinks idly. Then he suggests pressing the cigarette into someone's arm and asks if it would be hot. The others freeze in fear. Suzuki brings the cigarette close to Aizawa's arm while the kids protest, saying it is a bad idea, especially because it is almost summer and the burn marks will show. Suzuki laughs and says it is fine because Aizawa can just wear long sleeves. He burns him as his victim screams. In the present, Aizawa remembers how the bullies joked that the scars would heal in 10 years. He grips his scars and trembles as Suzuki returns. A waitress informs them the cafe is closing. Suzuki reaches out to tap Aizawa's shoulder, but he smacks the hand away and screams in panic. Suzuki is shocked. Aizawa apologizes and tells him not to worry, and Suzuki laughs internally. As they walk home, Suzuki decides that Aizawa has not changed mentally at all and still looks like the same broken kid. He glances at Aizawa's cheap-looking suit and wonders if it costs $20 secondhand. He smirks and asks about his job and whether he has a business card. Aizawa says he does not need one. Suzuki laughs to himself and imagines Aizawa working a low-status part-time job. He throws an arm over Aizawa's shoulder and says that maybe it would have been better if he had died in middle school. Aizawa is stunned. Suzuki continues, asking if his life is even enjoyable since he still drags around old memories. He claims no one cares about bullying from 20 years ago and says Aizawa's gloomy personality caused it anyway. He stops talking only when Aizawa stares at him coldly. Aizawa asks if Suzuki could say the same thing if someone he loved were being bullied. Suzuki replies that bullied people lack skills, cannot adapt, and are failures he would never love. He says it is late, then leaves, telling Aizawa never to approach him again. At Aizawa's home, his class album sits open with faces crossed out. He plays a recording of Suzuki saying bullying does not matter anymore, and listens to it repeatedly while staring at a picture of Suzuki and his daughter. The next day, Aizawa teaches class. He explains a topic that appears on exams and encourages his students to study well. Shiori watches him and remembers someone saying he used to teach at a school known for a bullying incident. She recalls how he once said he was bullied too. Her thoughts spiral as she wonders if he is behind what is happening to her. She fears he might be recreating his trauma through his students, or that he might be the one sending her the video. She wonders if she is simply overthinking. Aizawa ends class and reminds them of the school trip in 2 days, their last chance to enjoy themselves before exams, though they must behave appropriately. Shiori looks down, already knowing she will be alone. The rest of the class has their groups, and she is isolated. Yazaki-sensei watches from the hall and worries. She tries to call out to Shiori but freezes when she sees Aizawa. His stare reminds her of when he questioned her about favoring Shiori. She panics and walks away. Aizawa overhears Manaka asking Shiori if she is okay after yesterday. She apologizes for rushing home, and Manaka asks if she really needed the bathroom, which embarrasses her. Aizawa walks off. Shiori admits she lost her composure after learning Aizawa was the homeroom teacher in a well-known bullying case. She and Manaka stand by the window and she asks what happened to the victim. Manaka replies he does not know, but Aizawa surely does, and he would never tell her even if she asked. Shiori agrees. Manaka apologizes and asks if she wants to chat more, and she nods because being alone in class is painful. Meanwhile, girls in the class teasingly comment that Shiori and Manaka were together in the hallway, which annoys Himekawa. Yumi notices and looks uneasy. Later, Shiori is walking while checking her phone when Yumi calls out to her. Shiori greets her happily, but Yumi bluntly warns her to stop talking to Manaka. Himekawa likes him and was angry when she heard them speaking. Shiori panics and says she did not know. Yumi shrugs and remarks that she knows now, then starts to leave. Shiori stops her and asks why they are suddenly acting like strangers when they used to talk normally and even planned the school trip together. Yumi turns around and accuses her of being selfish. She says Shiori interrupts study time with questions and treats her notes as if they're her own. Yumi adds that she is a nuisance and implies that her personality is the real reason her gym clothes were thrown out. Shiori is devastated and begins wondering if she really is the problem, and whether she is alone because of herself. While she is lost in thought, Himekawa approaches from behind and suddenly kicks her hard in the back. Shiori falls face first onto the floor. Her eyes widen in fear as Himekawa casually says she feels better now. She talks on the phone, laughing, and says she kicked Shiori because stress builds up. Shiori lies there trembling and crying. Back in the classroom, a girl announces that Himekawa did something again. When someone asks what she did, the girl answers that Himekawa kicked Shiori. Aizawa listens with a dark expression and simply comments that it sounds painful. Shiori walks home while people stare at her dirty uniform. She feels weighed down as Yumi's question keeps echoing in her head, whether her personality caused her gym clothes to be thrown out. She stops in front of her house, takes a deep breath, and forces a bright smile before stepping inside. The moment she enters, she sees her mother standing there with a disappointed look, saying she just received a call. Shiori freezes, worried it's from the school, but her mother cuts her off and says it was from her cram school teacher. The tests she took this week were below average, and her mother asks if she realizes how hard it will be to get into her first choice university at this rate. She reminds her that she is in the advanced class, and adds that her father will be disappointed too. Shiori keeps smiling tightly and apologizes, saying she has been off lately but will improve. Her mother stops her again and asks why she doesn't stay back from the school trip. She claims that Shiori is in no position to go and that her father would agree. The words leave Shiori silent. When her mother finally notices the dirty clothes, Shiori panics as the bullying flashes through her mind. She tries to explain but is interrupted again when her mother scolds her for coming home in such an unsightly state. Hearing that from her own mother shocks her. Her mother says she will talk to the school about canceling the trip, but Shiori runs to her room and shuts the door while her mother continues speaking through it. She breaks down, thinking about calling her father, but remembers he said he was on a business trip. She sits quietly, wanting at least him to be on her side. The truth is that he isn't on a business trip at all. At school, Nagumo plays with an error flask until Aizawa calls out to her, telling her not to mess with the lab equipment. She happily agrees and asks if he thinks Shiori will come today. He answers casually that he doesn't know. She smiles and talks about how his plan the other day worked well, mentioning how he took Himekawa's phone in class and probably made Yumi resent Shiori. She gets excited, thinking that if Shiori loses her best friend, she won't have anyone left. Aizawa stays silent and tells her she talks too much, but she only laughs and says she can talk to him about anything since he has been on their side ever since that day. She reminds him of when he saw her putting trash on Shiori's desk about a month ago. She expected him to get angry, but he pretended not to notice. She laughs, calling it surprising that a teacher would side with the bully. He calmly asserts that he just avoids getting involved in incidents. Nagumo grins creepily and says she can tell he enjoys watching Shiori suffer. When he asks if something happened between her and Shiori in the past, she freezes. Before she can answer, her phone rings. After the call, she says Shiori has arrived and Himekawa is bringing her behind the school. She grins and asks if he wants to come. He gives a small smile. Behind the school, the four girls surround Shiori and ask if she wants to talk. Himekawa complains about dealing with things so early and tells Shiori to hurry up. She bows deeply and apologizes, shocking them. She thinks about what Yumi said and blames herself, believing her own behavior caused everything. Yumi stays quiet. Shiori trembles as she apologizes, saying she's sorry if she caused trouble for any of them. Aizawa watches from behind a wall while the girls question her about Manaka, accusing her of going after the boy Himekawa likes. Shiori panics and insists it isn't true, but they dismiss her, saying they can't believe her just because she denies it. Nagumo appears, clapping with a smile and saying, "Well done." Shiori looks confused as Nagumo pretends to be supportive, claiming they were all worried and that it's good Shiori reflected on herself. Then Nagumo's face turns cold as she tells her that the trash in her bag and the kick she received were her own fault. Shiori trembles. Nagumo tells her to change from today and asks her to list 10 things she thinks are wrong with herself. Shiori is confused and sweating, but they pressure her to hurry while kneeling. Aizawa listens as Shiori blames her selfish personality. Himekawa suddenly yells that flirting with her friend's crush should be one of the reasons, and Shiori repeats it. Aizawa realizes that no one will defend her, and at this rate she will start believing everything is her fault. He watches the slow brainwashing and thinks about Suzuki making his daughter suffer the same punishment he once gave him 20 years ago. He clenches his fist and walks away. The girls eventually accept Shiori's answers and complain that their throats are dry. Himekawa orders a cola. Another girl asks for strawberry milk, and Shiori stands there, confused. Nagumo then turns to Yumi and asks what she wants. Yumi says she's fine, but Nagumo's expression turns intimidating until Yumi quickly adds that she'll take an orange juice. Nagumo nods and tells Shiori they'll pay her back later. Then she leans in close and warns her that going to Aizawa is useless, because he's on their side. Shiori panics and runs away. She passes Manaka on the way but ignores him, leaving him confused. Later, when she is heading home, Aizawa-sensei stops her and says her mother told him she won't be going on the school trip. He tries to ask if she isn't feeling well, but she cuts him off. Trembling, she says she can't believe he talks to her so calmly. She tells him that Nagumo said he is on their side and accuses him of knowing about everything and maybe even helping. She screams that maybe he is making her experience the same bullying he suffered. He calls her name softly, smiling, and insists he would never do that. He wonders aloud why Nagumo would lie. Shiori suddenly states she realized something. Whenever he lies, he smiles. Aizawa is taken aback. She says maybe some of it is her fault, so she will endure it, but begs him not to spread her video. Then she walks away. He fixes his tie, but something shiny is attached to it. At home, Shiori sleeps and thinks she has to thank her mother because staying home from the trip is a relief. Spending 3 days with those girls would break her, but then someone calls her name. She wakes up to see Suzuki. He says he returned from his business trip last night and heard that her mother doesn't want her to go on the trip. He pats Shiori's head and tells her he convinced her mother to let her go. She stares at him, shocked and confused. He says it would be terrible to stop her from experiencing something like this, and adds that he even contacted the school. Her expression turns fearful as he tells her this is her last chance to enjoy a trip like this, reminiscing about how fun his own had been. He smiles and says he's looking forward to hearing about Kyoto when she returns. He leaves the room while continuing his phone call, and Shiori remains on the bed, sinking into despair. The next day at school, Aizawa instructs everyone on the bus to sit in their assigned seats. Nagumo sits beside Yumi and offers her candy. Yumi thanks her, buzzing with excitement about Kyoto. Nagumo agrees, but her attention shifts when she sees Shiori boarding the bus. Shiori's eyes are dim and lifeless. Nagumo watches her walk past and says, "Kyoto will be fun." But there's something even more interesting. She shows Yumi her phone and shares that she received a video last night from someone she doesn't follow. It is Shiori's video. Yumi's face goes pale as Nagumo remarks that she was shocked too and wonders what will happen if the video spreads.
Here I am, know it's been a while.